Thanks everyone for joining the webinar, and thank you for joining on how to reach new audiences and attract more bequestors. For those of you who have attended our webinars with F&P in the past, we do aim to have these ones run a little bit shorter, around 30 to 40 minutes. So we might be able to give you a bit of time at the back end. We'll see how we go though. Throughout this webinar, at any time, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A section as we have someone answering those in real time. If any questions don't get answered today, we'll follow them up after the session as well via email. And by the end of the week, we'll also be making this webinar available online to watch on demand or to share within your organization. So let's get started. Just so you know what to expect today, we'll go through a quick introduction of myself and also my colleague Adam, who is co-presenting today. Then we'll touch on a little bit around converting your existing supporters, some of the ways that have traditionally worked, the pros and cons of these methods, as this is obviously a really important component of your gifts and wills strategy. But it segues perfectly into today's topic of reaching new audiences and attracting more bequestors. From there, that's exactly what we're going to talk about, reaching those new audiences. So this is where it'll be the meaty part of the webinar and where you're going to learn best-in-class strategies and methods to help you achieve some outstanding results in attracting more bequestors. But really importantly, how a platform like Gathered Here can help naturally promote and feature your charity to seamlessly get you more bequestors and more gifts via the Gathered Here network and the 3,500 high intent will writers who are using our free will writing platform every single month. Towards the end of the webinar, we'll share with you some easy but very effective growth strategies as well, and how you can experience a quick and high return of investment through those growth strategies. And lastly, we'll wrap up by showcasing some case studies of our partners and some unique metrics around their gifts and wills from not only their existing supporters, but their new bequestors as well. So a quick introduction for those of you who don't know me yet. I'm Michael Tagliaferri. I'm the head of partner success at Gathered Here, and it's my job to make sure that our charity partners like yourselves are getting the most value out of their Gathered Here membership, regardless of if they're on our basic or our premium tier. Every single partner is really important to me, and I lead a fantastic team here who work really closely with our partners in helping them achieve their gifts and wills outcomes. My colleague Adam, he's also joining me today. Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. And I see a few names that I recognize here, so great to see a lot of our partners joining us today. For everyone else who doesn't know me, I'm Adam Herodotus. I'm the head of partnerships, and I focus more on supporting NFPs as they learn a bit more about Gathered Here and our product and services, and helping them to join our platform. As for Gathered Here, we're Australia's largest free online will platform. We provide smart technology to grow online wills, track bequests, and predict future revenue. These all come together to give our partners some really meaningful insights into individual gifts, as well as donor demographics and campaign success. Our team works really hard to provide some educational resources, such as today's webinar, as well as campaign recommendations and tailored support to give you the best chance of success. So a quick look at the numbers. Over 70,000 wills have now been written on Gathered Here, and users are really happy with the service we provide. We have a 4.9 star rating and over 3,500 5-star reviews from verified users. That customer satisfaction is a really big part of why our NFP partners put so much trust in us, and why we're currently able to provide online wills to over 700 NFPs and their supporters. All of that has come together to create an estimated $900 million in future gifts pledged through Gathered Here. So as I said, over 700 charities and NFPs now partner with Gathered Here. And as you can see here, they cross every sector, from animals and wildlife charities through to sporting clubs and arts and culture organizations. They also span from one-person micro charities all the way through to some of those big household names that we all know. So our platform can work for you regardless of what your budget or resource limitations may be. And we've talked about some of the really high level numbers, but Mike, could you start to break down some of how this actually works for our partners?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's talk about getting more bequestors to support your organization. At the crux of it, there are only two ways that you can get more bequestors. One is you can convert your existing supporters into bequestors, or two, you can attract brand new bequestors to your organization. Today, we're going to be focusing primarily on attracting those brand new bequestors, but for a little bit of context, we also want to talk to the conversion of your existing supporters first, because that's important. Some of you might actually remember we did do a webinar on this topic a couple of months ago. If you missed it, you can head to our YouTube page and watch that webinar on demand, or you can scan the QR code on the right there of this page as well. But as a quick recap, converting your existing supporters is all about connecting with the people already known to your organization. And the infographic on this slide highlights who they are or could be. They could be your regular givers, they could be active donors, they could also be subscribers of your newsletter or even volunteers. And conversion of them is all about persuading them to pledge a gift in their will. Traditionally, that's been done in a number of ways through promotional events that your charity hosts throughout the year at various stages. It could be through dedicated one-on-one stewardship of those high-value givers, of course, your email campaigns that you send to a broader supporter database or the welcome packs that you send to new supporters as well. And those regular posts and content on the social media that you use and the newsletter stories as well. You get the picture. There are a lot of different avenues to convert your existing supporters. But then when we focus more specifically about online wills, we move away from the higher stakes, higher cost, and typically time consuming as well initiatives like your promotional events, your one-on-one stewardship that we see a lot more of. And what we're seeing now in online wills is a huge spike in adoption of digitally led communications being used. There is the occasional overlap with physical copies, such as your postcards, your bookmarks, and your welcome packs. But typically speaking, digitally led communications are the main driver in converting your existing supporters. Without doubt, there are a lot of great things about this type of bequester acquisition. A lot of pros, of course. The initiatives to promote online wills to your existing supporter base are generally free or a very low cost. And so the barrier of entry is typically easy to navigate around. For example, gathered here, it's completely free. So if you're contacting your supporter database and using your own team to do that, there's absolutely no cost involved to do so. And so offering a free online will to your supporters is also a really nice way to help them out, as you're not asking them to spend hundreds of dollars on a will, and it's not time consuming because it can be done in the comfort of their home or in their own time as well. And you're connecting them with a very useful service that will ultimately save them money. So this ultimately can deepen your relationship and your existing relationship of your organization that it has with your existing supporters as well. However, there are a few drawbacks with this approach. Firstly, it requires your time and effort because you have to segment your supporter data, your supporter base. You've got to draft your emails. You've got to sort through various content or marketing approvals to get those drafted emails sent. And then you need to ensure that you're not over communicating with supporters so you can avoid donor fatigue that might be happening and everything that comes with that. So that's one con that we see with this method. But naturally, that means you're at the mercy of your marketing and your communications calendar. If they can't fit you in, or you could be waiting for a long time to even go out to your existing supporters and ask them to pledge a gift in their will, or you might not have the capacity to do that very frequently. It might be something that you can really only get holistic buy-in from your team and the relevant approvals to do so, maybe only once a year. You're also limited to the size of your existing supporter network. If you're a small supporter, and if you have a small supporter network, at some point you're going to hit that ceiling of how many people are genuinely interested in writing a will and obviously leaving you a potential gift in that will as well. When you contact your supporter database, they are not what we call high intent will writers. This might be the first time that they've considered writing a will. And yes, some of them will be over the moon that they've got that offer to write a free will, like I did, which was, oh, this is fantastic. I've been meaning to write a will for ages. But at the same time, quite a few of the people within your supporters within your database, it won't resonate with them, and they probably won't be interested in writing a will at that point in time. When you hit that limit, the only way to maintain momentum and to keep acquiring new bequestors is to look beyond your existing supporter database and into brand new audiences and attracting new bequestors. So I'm going to throw it over to Adam, and he's the expert to talk about that.
Thanks, Mike. Expert might be a bit generous, but I'll take it. So unlike converting your existing supporters into bequestors, this strategy looks at how charities can attract bequestors who were previously unknown to your organization. Now, this really flips the traditional donor pyramid on its head. Traditionally, we think about bringing casual donors on board first, and then gradually kind of moving them up the pyramid towards planned giving. There are a ton of benefits, though, to doing this the other way around, which means going outside your existing supporter base to look specifically for bequestors. Firstly, you're growing your overall network, and we know how important that can be, particularly as we know that people who pledge a gift in their will are more likely to support the charity beneficiaries on a day-to-day basis. So you can start to move towards moving supporters down the pyramid once you've secured a legacy gift. Reaching a wider demographic also gives you the power to grow gifts and wills at a much faster rate. As mentioned before, to really get that rapid growth of gifts and wills, most organizations need to look beyond their current supporter base. Although they might be the cohort that are most likely to pledge a gift, as Mike mentioned, you don't have as high intent to write a will in that group of people. And finally, you completely avoid the risk of over-communicating with your existing supporters. You don't have to worry about donor fatigue, whether you've reached out too many times, or if you're cannibalizing any other fundraising campaigns currently underway. You're going out to a brand new demographic of people who aren't tired of hearing from you yet.
Hey, Adam, that's a really interesting way to look at things through this donor pyramid. So do you think that digital transformation of fundraising means that it's the end of some traditional tools and methods like the donor pyramid?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think it's a great point. I'd say in short, the answer is no, not at all. I think it's really important to highlight that what we're doing at Gathered here is not in place of some of the traditional gifts and wills work or even more sort of broad fundraising strategies and ideals. Um, there's absolutely still a place for that. And those more personal relationships, as you mentioned before, that are built up over time, they're still really important. What we like to focus on is the speed and scale that we can help our partners tap into kind of supplementing that existing work that may already be happening. And I know for a lot of partners and probably a lot of you here today, that existing work might vary quite a lot. Some of you might not be doing a lot. Resources are light and hard to come by, whereas others, there might be sort of decades of that more sort of traditional gifts and wills work that's been done and is currently underway. And either way, Gathered here provides a really great growth opportunity to kind of sit alongside that. Great. So focusing a bit more on attracting new bequestors. So traditionally, when we think about going out to the general public, we like to think about above the line advertising, media advertising, TV, print, radio, billboards, all of those sorts of things. These avenues can be awesome at attracting people to a charity for the first time, but they do have some drawbacks when we specifically think about these in the context of attracting bequestors. Firstly, those traditional methods, it can be really tricky to reach people who are actively interested in writing a will. Again, those are the people that we talk about as high intent will writers. We know that only about half of the adult population have a will, and it's one of those tasks that people just love to put off. It's hard, it's complicated, it's time consuming, it can be a bit daunting. So we know that people tend to put it off. And also with these sort of traditional methods, it can be difficult to track the results and measure the efficiency with these above the line initiatives. We're a bit in the dark when it comes to the data, and it makes it really hard to create highly strategic plans as a result. And finally, as I'm sure a lot of you know firsthand, the above the line advertising and print broadcast, it can be very expensive, and particularly when you don't necessarily have a ton of data to sort of validate that expense. And this is where online will platforms are really in a world of their own because none of those drawbacks exist when you're dealing with online wills. So you can still reach a much larger audience who are unknown to your organization, but you don't have to deal with the typical pitfalls of above the line advertising. So let's talk about reaching the right people first. Online will platforms are unique in that they can connect charities and NFPs directly with the two demographics that are really ideal for attracting new bequestors. That's other charity supporters and those high intent will writers that we've mentioned a few times. Let's talk about other charity supporters first. You may be asking yourself why you'd want to connect with supporters of other charities. So some really important factors to understand here. We know that charity supporters are more likely than the general public to pledge a gift. When will writers arrive to our platform, we can see where they've come from, which is really helpful for us to start to understand some of their behaviors. So that means if someone arrived because they've Googled write a will or they've clicked on a gathered here ad, we can see that. But we can also see if they've arrived after clicking on a link that was provided to them by a charity, whether that's a link in an email or a website, maybe a QR code on a flyer or a welcome pack. We can see all of that. And what that data tells us is that when people arrive via a charity link, they pledge a gift 35% of the time. And that's huge. The percentage of people leaving a gift coming directly to our site sits at 16%. For those traditional wills, solicitor wills, and things like that, that number drops down even further to only about 7%. But, and this is really important, these charity supporters aren't only pledging gifts to the charity that directed them here. In fact, when people pledge gifts, they usually pledge more than one. And the average number of gifts pledged per bequester through Gathered Here is actually 3. So being able to access charity supporters can be transformational for your gifts and wills programs. When you partner with Gathered Here, you're able to access a huge pool of charity supporters because hundreds of charities are working with us and directing their supporters to our platform. As we've mentioned a few times now, we're working with over 700 different charities and NFPs, all directing their supporters to the Gathered Here Wills platform. So that means supporters from a huge range of different cause areas, regions, backgrounds, they're all getting eyes on your organization. And remember, each one of these pledges a gift, and they're usually pledging 3 gifts when they do so. But just think about that. You have all of these different charities directing their supporter base, and some of them have hundreds of thousands of people to our platform, they'll be able to see your charity too. Mike, I might throw it back over to you and you can tell us a little bit more about that second group of people that our partners can tap into.
Sure. Happy to take it from here. So that second group that we want to focus on is the high intent will writers. And that's the hardest part about locking in bequestors is actually getting people to write a will. So you can have someone 100% eager to support a charity, totally open to the idea, but actually getting them to take that final step is the tricky bit. So with online will platforms, we can do the hard work for you. We do a lot of work in the consumer space to educate the general public on the importance of writing a will and also the ease and simplicity of writing a will online. And we're encouraging them to do so, ideally via the Gathered Here platform. We know that people coming to Gathered Here are already over that procrastination stage of writing a will. They have a reason and an intent to write their will and that they're proactively doing something about it. So again, around 3,500 people are writing their wills every month on Gathered Here. Of that, 84% of these are the high intent will writers. That's those who are coming to Gathered Here of their own accord without being prompted by a charity campaign. you can put your organization front and center of this 84%. And at the very moment, that they're making that decision about leaving a gift and obviously their legacy as well. If you choose to, every single one of those individuals, they can see your organization's name, they can see your logo and your branding, a write-up about the amazing work that you're doing as well. So there's no better time really for them to see what that information is, and it's by far the most effective way to grow your gifts and wills rapidly. You just can't get this level of authentic exposure to new audiences in any other way, aside from the high intent will writers. And for those organizations that are growing or might not have the brand recognition yet that they might ultimately have one day, it's the platform is really built to your advantage to highlight your charity and also your cause. One way to do that is through what we call group listings. So that's where the will writers can choose to support a group of charities that are aligned to a specific cause or mission, like environmental-based causes, or this month is a great example. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we're really highlighting some of the partners in a group that we specifically work with who operate in that space. It's a fantastic way to bring people on board who might not have ever heard of your organization. It really fast tracks in winning over that new supporter by building, again, brand awareness and trust for you. And it ultimately brings them straight to the top of the donor pyramid that Adam spoke about earlier. Will writers can also search by cause area. So you can see that that this person has searched for animals and wildlife. Our platform dynamically filters and highlights charities within that animal and wildlife cause, like our friends at the Lost Dogs Home and WWF Australia are popping up. Or will writers can search for partners independently and browse out alphabetically as well. So how does this work? What do you have to make sure that your organization is visible in these areas? Adam is going to talk through that on how Gather Here makes that easy for you.
Thanks, Mike. So look, it all comes down to credits. So when you purchase a credit, you're essentially locking in advertising space on the Wills platform. And that's those areas that Mike just mentioned there, where people can see your name, logo, and some information about the great work that you're doing. Unlike traditional advertising, though, this type comes with a guarantee. So your organization will appear in these high visibility areas of the online Wills platform, will be seen by thousands of people until a gift is pledged. So if you buy one credit, you'll stay there until one gift is pledged. You buy 100, you'll stay there until 100 gifts are pledged. For our premium partners, this extra feature can be entirely self-managed in the GMP. That's the Gifts and Wills Management platform. You can top up your credit balance whenever you'd like. That brings me quite nicely onto the next point around tracking results and measuring the efficiency here. So this dashboard that you'll be able to access if you do decide to use credits to reach new audiences, it will really help you to accelerate your gifts and wills. This dashboard solely focuses on the revenue raised from brand new bequestors rather than existing supporters you may have converted. We keep the two completely separate in the back end. That way it makes it very clear for you to measure how both sides of your program are performing. You'll be able to see how existing supporters are being converted, and you'll be able to compare that to those brand new bequestors you've acquired through the platform. Means you have a really clear picture of how this type of advertising is working for you, how much it's costing, and importantly, how much it's generating for you. Of course, all of that is on top of the other data and analytics that you can access, including things like donor information, gift information, campaign results, and things like that. We won't get into that today, but there's plenty of other resources out there that we've put out, and we're happy to chat about it a bit more, but tons of other tracking and reporting that you get access to as well. Finally, talking about that cost piece, that's obviously an important factor here. We know that traditional media and broadcast advertising can be expensive, but because you can sort of entirely manage this yourself, you can invest as much or as little as you would like. We like to be transparent about pricing, so one credit costs $179 plus GST. There's no minimum spend, so you can test the waters with one credit if you'd like. And I can say without hesitation that charities get an absolutely phenomenal return on investments. The 6 month rolling average for estimated value per gift pledged via this advertising stream is over $51,000. That's a little bit less than the average revenue per gift pledged by charity supporters, which is just shy of 60,000. So it'll be a little bit lower, but not by much. Really, in terms of being able to access this new audience, this is an incredibly affordable and incredibly effective way to attract new bequestors and really grow your Gifts and Wills program. So we have conversion and acquisition. And in an ideal world, charities and NFPs would be combining these two strategies because they really do balance each other out nicely. In terms of conversion, it's free or very low cost, as we've spoken about. It's a way to give back to your supporters, and it can really deepen those relationships you have. However, it does require time and effort investment. And as Mike mentioned, some of those approvals, which we all know can be quite difficult at times. In terms of attracting new bequestors, you can get an extremely high return on investment, and you can grow your supporter network and avoid any risk of donor fatigue with your existing supporters. But there's one more element we haven't talked about, which is actually really important for a lot of our partners. Using online wills to attract new bequestors can be completely hands-off and requires very minimal intervention. That's actually why a lot of partners choose to focus solely on attracting those new bequestors, because they can just set it up, they can top up their credits when they need to, and it just kind of bubbles away in the background like a passive investment. This is huge if you're pushed for time or resources, because you can create an awesome revenue driver without having to do all of that legwork. Now, for the last few minutes of the webinar, I'll hand back over to Mike. He's going to take us through a couple of organizations and how they've really made these two growth strategies work for them and share some of those outcomes with us as well.
Cheers, Adam. Now we will be anonymizing the case studies, and that's because, as I'm sure a lot of you know firsthand, there can be quite a few levels of approvals internally within charities when sharing sensitive information like this. It's our aim to really make life easier for fundraisers rather than adding extra jobs. So that's why sometimes you'll see us using anonymized case studies like you are today, but they're still going to add a lot of value. So what I want to start off with is with an animal charity that's based in Victoria. That much I can tell you. This organization relies on a very small bequest team. I believe there's only one person fully dedicated to bequests, and they've seen some amazing results. This charity has been able to generate an estimated $2.3 million in gifts solely by converting its own existing supporters into bequestors. And for clarity, we're only looking at primary gifts here. So that means we've excluded any gift where it was pledged on the condition that a different beneficiary dies first. So, for example, a husband might leave everything to his wife, but include a clause in his will that if the wife dies first, this charity can have everything. So those gifts are not included in this reporting. Anyway, this charity has done some solid information about online wills on its website. It ran an email campaign back in 2022, and it's done a range of other initiatives that in total have generated $2.3 million, again, from existing supporters, which is a good start. However, due to having a smaller team and obviously some challenges that can come with that, this organization started to explore using Gathered Here as a form of hands-off advertising, and that has had phenomenal results. So what we can see here is that they've actually managed to generate an incredible 839 gifts by tapping into the high intent will writers and other charity supporters. And those gifts are estimated to be worth a total of $28.3 million. Obviously, when you compare that to the revenue generated from their existing supporters, you can really see why accessing new demographics can be so transformational for your business. If you look at that pie chart on the right-hand side, you'll see that new acquisitions, they account for over 92% of the total gift value pledged to this organization. Now, this organization, they committed to investing into credits to help them achieve this level of growth and to see this level of success. But as I said before, this can also work on a smaller scale as well. So for comparison, looking at another animal charity and also based in Victoria, this one is significantly smaller than the first case study that we highlighted, but it's special in that it has a very large social media following, particularly for the size that the charity is. So this charity leveraged that loyal and invested supporter base with a lot of communications, and they saw a fair amount of success with 34 gifts worth a total of $2.5 million. However, this organization also diversified and it adopted a dual prong approach and sought out new bequestors via the Gathered Here network. What that meant is that they used credits to access those new bequestors, but they invested much more modestly than Charity A in the first case study, which is completely fine, but they ultimately gained 69 gifts worth a total of $3.2 million. So that's a great result through that investment into their credits. And a credit is only redeemed when a gift is pledged to the organization. So when we compare that to the gifts generated by existing supporters, you can see that this charity has a much more even split because they have a lower budget to dedicate to those credits, but they're still working fantastically and making an impact and generating results, and those results being gifts and new bequestors. So this charity acquired their acquired bequestors now represent 67% for gifts and 56% of gift value. And then the last case study we'll look at is a little bit different because this organization has a high level of brand recognition across Australia. So this case study is of a national mental health charity that does a lot of outreach to its existing supporters and really uses tracking to a high standard. So when you become a premium tier partner on Gathered Here, you can create unlimited numbers of unique links and track how those links are performing in terms of wills and gifts. It's one of our unique features in helping you understand your data and what's working well. So this organization has created over 50 unique links, and they have an incredibly granular view of which outreach efforts are working. We've simplified it here with this chart, but I just want to reiterate. Sorry, we have simplified it here with this chart here, but you can get quite granular with your reporting to the degree where you can track if a URL or a QR code is working better for you on your printed comms. Anyway, this charity was able to generate 57 gifts from its efforts engaging existing supporters, and those gifts are worth an estimated total of $1.4 million. To complement this side of their program, though, the charity also started advertising via Gathered Here in order to access more potential supporters. And that had great results for them. So this organization, again, is quite widely known, and putting their name and logo in the front of those high intent will riders really benefited them. They were able to generate 360 gifts since launching in mid-2023, and those gifts are worth a total of $13.5 million.
Yeah, really great results, Mike, and thanks for taking us through that. You touched on this a little bit, but are there any other reasons why Charity B didn't generate as many new bequestors as the others? Is that something that typically comes down to?
Yep, good question. So what we're looking at over these case studies are the results of total gifts via Gathered Here. So we see that gifting rates are typically determined by a couple of things: the charity size, the category or the cause that they operate in, and most importantly, how long they've partnered with Gathered Here. So in this example of Charity B, they've simply had less new acquisitions based on their short tenure on the Gathered Here platform. So as we spoke about, they're a smaller organization who are slowly but steadily growing their brand and supporter base through various functions, and they just haven't been using our platform for quite as long. but Gathered Here serves one of those functions to help bring them new bequestors. So we're really only just getting started with them, but they're off to a great start through, again, our high intent will writers.
Makes sense. Thanks, Mike.
No worries. Okay, we're coming to a close of our time now, but I did want to quickly wrap up with what we've talked about and why we think it really matters to you. So at its core, online wills can be used in two ways: to convert your existing supporters into bequestors or to attract brand new bequestors, again, through those high intent will writers and other charity supporters. We've seen that organizations can have significant success converting their existing supporters. But if you want to grow your gifts and wills at a much faster rate, investing in advertising opportunities is the most effective way of doing this. Not only is it effective, it's low maintenance, it's support friendly, and it's suitable for almost any budget and will deliver you an outstanding return of investment that Adam obviously highlighted with that credit cost versus the average gift size that we see through those high intent will writers. So if you are interested in joining Gathered Here, I do encourage you to do so today. Again, it is 100% free until you upgrade to our premium tier. You can get in touch with Adam if you'd like to chat about that or purchasing credits. But if you'd like to chat to me or my team about upgrading, please feel free to do so. If you are already a basic partner with us, you can also upgrade to the premium tier in the GMP. And finally, if you asked a question today and it wasn't answered, we will be following those up in the coming days. So do keep an eye out on your inbox. And lastly, thanks again for joining and for your time and attention today. I hope you have a great week ahead filled with lots of gifts and wills, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.